If you've spent any time on the internet at all in the last 5 years, you've probably heard a clip like this. I want to thank our sponsor, VPN, for the following blah, 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 blah. But what is a VPN? I need to preface this video with saying, when I started writing it and researching for it, I thought it'd be really interesting for people to just understand what a VPN is. You hear it everywhere, but how does it technically work? How does it make you look like you're in a different country? But the deeper I looked, the more scary and dark underbelly of this industry I've managed to find. And I'll show you by the end of it what exactly happens there. But first I want you to be able to actually understand what is a VPN. And in the end then we look at what are some of the dangers that go along with it so that you can protect yourself in the future. Throughout my career in software development, I've learned a decent amount about networking, and I will do my best to give an explanation that makes sense to everybody. You do not need to understand anything about software development in any way, shape or form to be able to understand what I'm going to show you. But disclaimer, networking, even for the best software engineers, is always black magic at some point or another. Some things just are the way they are, and they just happen because they happen. But I will give you an explanation that hopefully you can follow that will help you understand better what a VPN is and why it works. So, what is a VPN? Long story short, it allows you to appear to be somewhere else or somebody else. Some services are free, some services you need to sign in, some services you need to have an account for, some services offer encryption. Yes, encryption is not an inherent element of VPNs. You can very well have a VPN with no encrypted traffic whatsoever. So be aware of that. But that's just in today's world how it's sold to you and how it can be made user-friendly. But how does it work? The internet is made up of billions of devices sending messages to each other. That's basically what the internet is. And how these messages get from your computer to some streaming server somewhere else in the world is actually incredibly complex. But to be able to understand what a VPN is and how it works, we actually only need to understand a few basic concepts. And the easiest way to understand that is through the analogy of traditional letters. Messages sent on the internet are actually very similar to traditional letters that you'd be familiar with. They have a content called data payload. They also have a stamp, but I'll explain that later. They have a return address, the source IP, this is the IP of your laptop, and a destination IP. This is like the address to send it to. The next concept we need to understand is the difference between an LAN, a local area network, or LAN. I'm sure you're familiar with it from all the LAN parties you have been to.
Bruh.
And a WAN, a wide area network, which is essentially the internet. The WAN, the wide area network that we're all familiar with, connects different small LANs. Like in your own house or in a cloud data center, they're not globally accessible, but they're connected through a wide area network. Imagine a LAN more like literally your own house, where you could send little letters from one room in your house to another room and back. That's what a LAN is, information within your own house. A WAN, on the other side, in our analogy, would be the public post service, where from your house you send a letter to someone else's house. In our analogy, the postal service is the internet. And that was all good enough until the 1990s, when big tech corporations depended more on communication between their individual computers. But external computers couldn't send messages because they were not part of their LAN. And that's when VPN was invented. Think of VPN kind of like an internal postal service that can go to individual houses far away, pick up messages directly, and bring them back into your internal building, making it look like it was sent from within the building without having to go through the public post service / the internet. While this whole thing was invented to keep private company internal messages private and company internal, companies figured out that actually there is another use case for this, which is selling to customers that they can appear to be somewhere else. The way this works is when a message gets sent through the secure VPN tunnel, the VPN server receives that message and sends it on. Because they're in a different country, this virtual post stamp on your message gets adapted, and the streaming server believes you sent this message from a US location. Those VPN companies have servers physically located all over the world. If you send this through a UK server, it will appear to be from the UK. If you send it through a Japanese server, then it will appear to be from Japan. Now we know what a VPN service is and how this redirection service works that these companies offer. But the big question that should still be in your mind is, how are they able to offer all this service for free? If something is free, then you're the product.
Nah, I never knew that.
Throughout my research, I found 3 different examples of where companies absolutely abused the trust of their customer base and used it for their own profit without any concern for their customers. The first story starts in 2007 with Usayir Gadid, who launched PureVPN. PureVPN was a VPN service that offers users a premium security and a strict zero logs policy. Their website explicitly stated, "We do not monitor user activity, nor do we keep any logs." And that promise bought users' confidence. And rightly so, it's a pretty strong statement. And the world might never have found out if it wasn't for a man called Ryan Lynn, who was arrested by the FBI in 2017. Once the case was closed, one of the affidavits used against him was unsealed, and it publicized that he was using PureVPN, and PureVPN supplied the FBI with all the logs, his times of when he logged in and what his IP addresses were at the time of login, which is kind of difficult if you follow a strict zero logs policy.
Oh, really?
In their defense, when this happened, they seemed to really change direction and turn things around. They put a company on what is called an always-on audit, meaning this third-party company has zero restrictions to all of their data at any point, at any time. They can go and look. And since then, they actually hired a second third-party company to also audit them continuously forever. And they have now 2 companies continuously auditing them and checking that they don't have any logs. And it seems that they have kept that promise. In 2025, a transparency report showed that actually they had 50 requests for data from law enforcement, and they had to refuse all of them because of lack of data that they had available. But it is a prime example of how important it is to check those logs and how important it is not just to trust the word of a company. But that was only case number 1. And trust me, it gets a lot worse from here. The second case we're going to look at is a lot more malicious in my opinion. It looks at a company called Onavu. It was originally founded as a mobile data analytics company, but it offered the service called Onavu Protect, which was essentially a VPN service. The way it worked is that it funneled all of the traffic from all the other apps on your phone through Onavu Protect, through Onavu servers, and Onavu as a company had no intention to do anything other than that. The problem came in 2013 when Onavu was bought up by this other small company called Facebook.
No! God, please, no! No!
Yes, that Facebook. Look, I know VPN stands for virtually private network, but that private part just means it is private within your company. Remember how it was invented to keep data private within your company, not private from your company. And so whoever your VPN supplier is, they have access to your data. They can see it because you're sharing it with them. It's not private from them, it's private with them.
Okay, now you have my attention.
And when Onavu was bought up by Facebook, Facebook became this company that had now access to all of that data from all of those phones that used Onavu Protect. And Facebook essentially used it for predicting and analyzing users' behavior on their own phone, on other apps, to be able to gauge market trends before they became more apparent to other companies. And that sounds bad enough, but that's not even the tip of the iceberg of this story. The sinister part of this project, and this case in particular, happens in 2016, when allegedly Mark Zuckerberg sent emails within Facebook saying he's not happy that they cannot track market data of Snapchat because Snapchat encrypted the data on device before sending it off. Meaning, even though the traffic was sent through Onavo Protect, it was already encrypted when it got to Facebook. And he was not happy about that. And he put his engineers on fixing that problem to be able to decrypt Snapchat's traffic without them knowing. The technical parts are maybe not interesting for all of you, but essentially they started a project called Project Ghostbusters, in which their Onavo Protect internal VPN app started fake servers for Snapchat and all the others and offered the encryption service. So Snapchat encrypted their traffic in their app, but then sent it to Onavo Protect on the phone, which decrypted it and then forwarded it, re-encrypted it for Snapchat, but was able to read that data in between. And so Facebook was able to read data that was supposed to be encrypted, and it did this with a few other apps as well. Instead of protecting the customers as the product suggested, Onavo Protect, they actually abused it and were able to decrypt other stuff from people's phones that was supposed to be encrypted from those companies. In 2018, Apple found out what they were doing and essentially banned them from the App Store. But Facebook didn't stop there. They rebranded the app as Facebook Research, and they started paying users $20 a month for full access to all of their data. Yeah, Facebook. Google also pulled it off the Play Store, and Facebook officially shut down all the Onavo servers in 2020. Where can we go from here? How can it get any worse? Okay, this third case we're looking at is maybe not the most malicious, but it is, I think, the most dangerous for users, and it's important to understand the difference between these cases for you to be able to stay safe. This third story starts in 2008 when, let me look this up.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Offa Wilensky and Derry Shribman, they started a company to basically reinvent the internet through peer-to-peer communication. So rather than sending stuff through servers, you send stuff from one computer to another directly, rather than in the wide network. And actually, it was really genius. It was really, really cool. They built a really cool technology on top of the existing internet to be able to exchange messages more direct, have more caching, make it more efficient and run faster. It was quite ingenious what they have invented, and still is to this day. Very, very clever. The problem I have, which you'll see, is that they're not really very transparent with what the service is doing to users, I think. It takes them about 4 years, from 2008 to 2012, but eventually Hola VPN launches, and it is working. It works. Their reinvention of the internet through peer-to-peer communication, sitting on top of the standard protocols, actually works. They can exchange messages, and it is very efficient, and it runs. It's great. To be able to understand what I feel is so dangerous about Hola VPN, as opposed to essentially all other VPN services, we need to understand how they work. So we talked about how the postal service, the VPN, is this internal department that pulls the letter into the internal postal department and then reads it only in the company. Well, Hola VPN doesn't do this. It goes through peer-to-peer communication. That means every user on that Hola network is a node in itself. And if I say I want to be my traffic to come from the United States, I will send my traffic to you. And that's the difference. There's no big warehouse, there's no big company building the servers that gets sent off. But I send my traffic to you, to your personal address, and you, essentially your computer, resends the letter with your home address as return address to whatever I requested. That way, we just need nodes all over the internet, all over the world. And whenever there is somebody from that country on the network, I can use their computer to send it off. It sounds great in theory, but think about this. This means that any user in the world can use your home address to send traffic, send emails, make death threats, hack government buildings from your personal IP address.
Hold up. Wait a minute. Something ain't right.
And when they track that IP down, you will be the person whose door law enforcement will knock on, because it was your IP address that made those requests. The first time this was massively abused was in 2015, when a large amount of IP addresses globally were bought up by somebody, and through the Ola network, execute programs on your computer, on your mobile phone, remotely from their computer as part of the Ola protocol. So this was done, and all these devices globally started running malicious code. And I hope you're starting to see the picture of how I feel like this might not be as malicious, but much more dangerous for individual users. But all of this would be okay if in 2015 everyone saw this cyber attack and realized, oh my goodness, that's not good, we need to stop doing that. But nothing happens. The next year, in 2016, Ola hits 100 million users for the first time. In 2017, a venture capitalist firm buys major stakes for $200 million in them.
No.
Only in 2024, this is 9 years after the network was used for a major global cyber attack, did they restructure their offering, and now they offer a paid plan where you can pay to not be an exit node, meaning you can direct traffic for other people, but you cannot be used as a public-facing IP for this traffic. But if you're on the free tier plan, you are still that exit node today. If you have Ola VPN installed of any of your devices and you do not pay to be in the no exit node tier, then you are an exit node. Your IP can and is being used to make requests to the public internet for other people. The real problem is that, like I said, the technological solution is quite ingenious and is still the best solution for tricking Netflix and other streaming services that you're in a different country. Because most of these streaming services do not allow VPNs to be used. And with Ola VPN, it's a private person sending that message. It's like me sending a letter rather than a big company with their big company header and paper and on their envelope. So it's much easier for streaming services to know, oh, this traffic is coming from this big server that I know belongs to a VPN company, so I'm gonna block it. But with Ola, that's not possible because it's all residential, individual IP addresses. There is no big server that they are aware of. So it's great at actually tricking those services into trusting. The problem is that users are not aware of what their devices are being used for. Today, Ola has 250 million users, and their privacy policies now state more clearly what they're doing, which they had not always done in the past. But did you read the privacy policy when you installed it? Ola really takes the expression to the next level. If you're not paying for the product, you are the product. I said it was gonna be a crazy video, and I think it turned out to be crazy. I can't believe the things that are happening today still without people knowing what's going on. There is great VPN companies out there that offer a service that is trustworthy and reliable. But please do your research. More likely than not, if it's a free VPN service, you should not be using it because they will abuse your trust. So long story short, should you use a VPN? As always, the answer is, it depends. What are you using it for? And did you vet the service? Did you read their transparency reports and check that they are trustworthy services? If it's free, I'd be very, very suspicious. And that brings us to a message from our sponsor. I'm just kidding, there's no sponsors in this channel. That's why if you're still here, thanks very much for watching. And please subscribe, it helps me out and it helps YouTube knowing that there is people who care about this content. Till next time, stay silly and follow me.